I'm back again to talk about money management, especially for couples, and some of the lessons we've learned over the years. The response and feedback we got on the previous video was so great that we just had to come back and do another one. That actually wasn't our original plan. I was going to be done, but I got a lot of great feedback and comments from you guys, so really appreciate it. So we're going to jump into it again. And once again, just like I said at the start of the last video, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. You know, we're coming at this from a dose of, on one side, humility, right? Because we understand tomorrow's financial situation isn't promised to anybody, but also as somebody or a couple that's in their mid-40s that has really worked hard over the years and, you know, has accumulated stuff, has you know, rented apartments and bought and sold houses. So we've kind of lived life financially. We've done a lot of things. And so that's kind of the perspective here. And also the perspective of a couple. You know, when you couple with somebody, you have to blend your money management strategy and your credit management strategy with theirs. And sometimes that can be a big disconnect, right? And we saw that. We talked about the show Atlanta last time with Donald Glover. The show I'll talk about this time is like Married to Medicine. Obviously, we watched that. That's a show that's based here in Atlanta.
A couple of those doctors are my doctors.
Dr. Jackie delivered Chase many years ago. What was interesting this past season, you saw a couple that has a lot of money, Cecil and Simone, got a lot of money, right? But they still were essentially fighting about money because Cecil went and invested in a company and didn't tell Simone. I think he put what, 20K in it?
Yeah, 20K, yeah.
So even if you have money, money can still be an issue. So we're gonna talk about that. So let me jump right into it. I wanna respond to a couple of the comments first. A lot of you guys caught me on the last video, and I thought about it after we edited the video when I was showing the spreadsheet. I didn't talk about taxes. So let me address that. I talked about doing that spreadsheet as an exercise with my son. And so when I went through the spreadsheet with my son, I didn't show him taxes on that spreadsheet, but what I did, I showed him my pay stub. And I said, all right, look at how much money I made. It's a good amount of money, right? And then look at Uncle Sam, 401k, health insurance, right? Just taking out just hundreds of dollars, and here's what's left over. So I think the best way to explain that to your children is just show them a pay stub, because I think when you see it in black and white, it becomes real. I think it's one thing to say, hey, Uncle Sam's gonna take 30-35%. I think it's another thing to show them a pay stub where, yeah, all this money's coming out. So thank you guys for catching me on that one. I think where I wanna start out in this video is talking about credit. You know, credit is one of those things that is so important, and quite frankly, I think really difficult to manage. I do think a lot of the way we are judged by our credit is designed against the consumer. It is designed to help businesses and not necessarily to help the consumer or the little guy. So it is so important for us to check our credit annually and make sure. For those of you, so when my wife and I met, we were young college students. We got together right after school. So having credit wasn't really an issue because we didn't have any. We were, you know, we didn't have credit. But I think for those of us that are older, right, we're in our 20s and 30s and dating, you know, you got to check a lot about that person. So in addition to doing the background check, the STD check, you got to check that person's credit before you take the next step in that relationship.
Also, all right, so I think a lot of you know that we met in college, Florida A&M, and I think you and I, babe, were able to pick up on some characteristics or traits that were very similar. And looking, or, you know, kind of gravitating towards someone who has similar spending habits will take you a long way, especially if you're considering spending the rest of your life with that individual. If you are in college and you see someone and all they're concerned with is flossing, just, you know, you may want to kind of.
And actually, let me tell a story about that. So, believe it or not, babe, before I met you, I did date, I say I dated maybe one or two other women, but they didn't match up to you. They weren't, you know, it was not. But I remember dating a girl late high school, early college. And believe it or not, as young as we were, she already had bad credit. And I knew she had bad credit because she would let a lot of her other family members get stuff in her name.
Absolutely not.
And people, please, never. If they're not a spouse, quite frankly, I'm gonna end it there. Don't let anybody buy anything under your credit, please.
And even for your kids too, you know, because kids can succumb to peer pressure when they're out of your house and they have your credit card. I would say, you know, give them some type of allowance, maybe, you know, kind of fuel money into their accounts.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know about getting Chase credit card in my name.
And remember, we talked about this, right? Give your kids a lot of cash up front. Let them handle cash money so they can see it flowing out of their hands. Because, you know, when you're 16, 17, 18, 19, I give you a credit card, you're just learning how to be responsible. And that's a lot of weight to put on someone that's just learning finances, to take this credit card and don't run the balance up. That's a lot of responsibility. As we get older and you get in a relationship, make sure you check that other person's credit. The way to check credit, you want to go to annualcreditreport.com. Not freecreditreport.com. That's a service from Experian, I think. And the 3 credit reporting agencies are Equifax, which is based here in Atlanta, Experian, and TransUnion. So you want to go to annualcreditreport.com, and you may not know this, but there's a federal law that says that I think every state has it where you can get your credit report free at least once a year from annualcreditreport.com. Don't use any of the other sites. Now, I want to emphasize a credit report is different from a FICO score. A credit report is almost kind of like a report card. It'll show you, you know, every account you've ever opened. If you've had anything over 30 days late, it will show you that. But it doesn't give you a score. A FICO score, FICO I think stands for Fair Isaac Credit something. A FICO score is a standard that the 3 credit reporting agencies have kind of agreed on that will rank your credit versus basically everybody else in the United States. And you guys can Google, you know, what's a good credit score, what's a bad credit score. And I'm sure most of us are familiar with a FICO score and how it works. I've not seen where you can get a free FICO score unless you sign up for some other service. Here's a warning about a FICO score though. And this is something that is not widely known, that comes up when you buy a house. Believe it or not, even if you go out and pay for a FICO score, they say, hey, your FICO score is I don't know what's a good FICO score. I don't remember. I think the 800 is good. Hey, you got an 800 FICO score. Believe it or not, if you apply for a mortgage, they can actually pull a different FICO score. And since we're talking about mortgages, let's kind of segue into home ownership, because I think, you know, we talked about in the last video this millennial generation and how it's harder for this generation, I think, to get up on their feet. And I think one of the things that's really a lot more difficult now is home ownership. What
is the difference, babe, between home ownership and renting?
You know, with home ownership, it is an asset. It is an asset that should appreciate or gain value. So technically, your home is an investment. Just like we talked about last time, 401k is an investment stock. So technically, your home should be an investment. So when you buy a home, you want to try to buy a home as best you can in an area that is appreciating in value, that is up and coming in value. One of the reasons we moved, you know, in town into the Buckhead area is because we saw this as a hot area that was on the rise in value. And that's happening in a lot of cities where the core of the city is where a lot of the home values are rising. And so, you know, try to look at your home not just as someone you want to lay your head, but also as an investment. You do get a tax break for buying a home. The interest you pay on your mortgage every year, let's say you pay, I don't know, $12,000 just in interest a year, you do get to deduct that from your taxes. And I want to say this too, you know, I think home ownership is different now. And I would say owning a traditional kind of home like this one, is not necessarily for everybody. I think in some cases it is better to rent. It also sometimes is better to have a townhouse or a condo. In the house that we own, so we've had 3 houses. Our first house was traditional, very much like this one, very similar floor plan, but we wanted to move from the suburbs into the city. So then we bought a townhouse. But even with the townhouse, just to say, there's no difference. It's a mortgage. You pay every month. It's just like buying a house. And I do think townhouse and condo living is appropriate for some people. I think if you are a smaller family or single, or it's just going to be 2 of you, I enjoy living in a townhouse from the perspective in a condo that it is very, very, very low maintenance. If you own a home, there is a lot of maintenance.
But why did we move out of the townhouse? There are only 3 of us.
Well, we wanted the space, and we wanted, you know, a big, a big house with a basement. So for those of us that are homeowners, you're gonna have to keep a rainy day fund, because, you know, with the home, there's just a lot to come with it in terms of yard, painting, plumbing.
Yeah, that's stuff that we didn't have to take care of with the townhouse too. Yeah, that was great.
And because your home is an asset, you don't want it to fall apart. And your home, if you don't put money into your house, it'll fall apart, and it'll fall apart quick. And you will bring down the value of not only your house, but your neighbors around you. So I want to wrap this up by saying, don't necessarily buy a home unless you're ready for the full financial requirements. Buying a house has a lot of financial benefits, but there are also a lot of financial things you have to put into a home. So we've talked about this idea of checking credit, and you're buying a home or a condo or a townhouse with your loved one. So I know a question, and I think this is going to be a big debate. When you couple with somebody, what do you do as far as joint accounts? Do you share accounts as a couple, or do you keep separate accounts? And I've been doing a lot of talking. I'm gonna ask you, babe, what's your opinion?
I think once you enter into that union, you're speaking marriage, right?
Yes.
Once you enter into that union of marriage, I think everything is one. And I know, ladies, there will be a lot of you out there who disagree. You want your own money, you want your own this, you want your own that. Here in our family, this is what works for us. We have joint accounts. Of course, we have 2 vehicles, but it's not a my car, ERIK car.
We make payments on.
We have cars. When I feel like getting into one car, I just grab, both keys are on my key ring. So I'm not having to ask ERIK, oh, can I drive your car today? No, those are those are our things. There's no mine and yours. I think when you enter into a marriage, I think that a lot of times that's where people, run into complications. It's too much, I think, divisiveness.
I do. I agree. I agree.
What do you think, babe?
I think division. I think the last thing you said was the key word, division. I think, here's the thing.
So do you agree on the joint account?
I do. Because here's the thing, if you're going to commit to entering a marriage with somebody, potentially having children with somebody,
it's going to be theirs anyway.
Right? It's a disconnect. Like, I can have a child with this person, but I can't share a bank account. That doesn't jive. So I do think the bills for the household should come out of a joint account. Now, I will make an exception for if you have a hobby or a passion, like you're really into drones or you really like to shop.
Or like how Cecil did on Merit to Medicine. He is a big golf fanatic. So he may need to have a separate fund for his golfing. But also I'll say too, babe, if you're having some type of apprehensions about sharing an account with your spouse,
that goes back to our first point in the video, right? We said, hey, you want to understand, make sure that person's attitude towards money matches with yours.
Right. I'm not marrying anybody who I can't trust with the money.
Exactly.
With the church's money. If I can't trust him with the church's money, I can't trust him with me.
So yeah, I think like you said, you used the Cecil example. If you want to put maybe 10%, 20% of your income towards your hobby in a separate little small account, or maybe have a little separate small credit card, that's fine. But I think this idea of I got a bank account that's my salary, you got a bank account that's your salary, and then trying to figure out who pays what bill, I don't think is a recipe for, it just makes it more difficult.
Absolutely, especially let's say if you guys are currently renting, and then down the road, here again, you're thinking about purchasing a home. If one of the individuals in the relationship has a separate credit card or a separate account, and they're doing whatever they want to do with it, then when you enter into the home buying process, they look at both of you guys.
Yeah.
One of y'all can screw it up for everybody.
And guys, this is a tea time, so we want to talk about relationships. So are you coupling with somebody that is financially responsible, that will work, that will hold down the job, that will, for lack of a better term, bring home the bacon?
Right. Let me ask you this.
Love will not sustain you in a marriage.
Right. Love will not sustain you in a marriage. Is it absolutely paramount to other things?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the electric man does not want that chocolate candy and Valentine's Day card that your spouse got you. He needs those. He wants his money.
Yeah.
And so here's my question too, babe. Do you marry for money or do you marry for love?
I think I won't use the term, but I would say security.
Right.
You marry for a person, or you marry to be in a relationship that you, to the best of your ability, will be financially secure. Financial security means different things to different people. But you don't want to be in a relationship where one person is the weak link in the chain.
All right. And so how do you know? I think trying to decide or determining whether or not this person is going to be someone fiscally responsible starts at the Union. You and I met in college. I saw your major, you saw my major.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't switching majors every, you know, every semester, and nor were you.
Yeah.
I saw what your major was, you know, we might be all right. You know what I'm saying? So when I say, do you marry for money? I mean, when you're starting out younger, the potential make money.
That person has to have potential. And we talked about the 3 things last time: education, hustle, street smarts. That hustle and that street smarts, that potential has to be there. Okay. I think the last thing we will cover are credit cards. And I don't think this is going to be anything super groundbreaking. You don't want to have too many credit cards.
Would you care to share how many credit cards we have?
We have 2. 2, that's it.
That is it.
You don't want to have too many credit cards. Believe it or not, here's another thing that you might not know. So you got all these credit cards, right? And you're like, man, I'm trying to be financially independent, and I've paid this credit card off that I've had for 10 years. Now I want to close it. Don't close the credit card. I know you've paid it off, you're happy, and the attempt is to close. Because believe it or not, and this is again one of those areas where I think the credit system is weighed against us as consumers. Companies, when they do financing, actually want to see you have the optimal situation is to have a long history with a credit card with a low balance. You want to have credit cards that have a long history and a low balance. So when you close a credit card, even if you paid it off, that can mess up.
Yeah, they want to see that you are responsible.
As you mentioned, we only have 2 credit cards. We do have credit cards that have like benefits, you know. So I do like cards with benefits like airline miles or something like that, hotel miles, hotel benefits. Store credit cards, let's talk about that. Or like furniture company credit cards. I'm actually okay with store credit cards like a Best Buy or a Target or even like Overstock.
What about Home Goods?
Or Home Goods. Under these circumstances, I'm gonna give you guys a very specific set of circumstances. You're making a very large purchase, okay? Let's say your daughter's going to college and you've gone to Target and bought $2,000 worth of college dorm stuff. You go to the register, they're like, oh, if you open your Target Red card, you get 10% off. I am fine with that as long as it's a large purchase, because if I get 10% off of $2,000, that's $200. And I know, hey, I got the money, I just want this discount, I'm gonna pay off this credit card real quick in the next few months. I am fine with doing a store credit card that way to get a discount, and I know I'm gonna pay it off. But I think again, you gotta be careful, that can be dangerous. What you don't want is I have, you know, 20 store credit cards or furniture credit cards or credit accounts, and I'm trying to juggle all of these different cards and make the payments on time, and I can't keep up with what I owe or who I owe. So just be careful with those little bitty, small balance, you know, store credit cards. Taxes. In the last video, I talked about Microsoft Excel, and I said, you know, I'm sure a lot of you guys use Excel, but if you don't, here's how you can use it to do your own budget. In this video, I want to do a similar thing and talk about taxes. Just like you can do your own budget easily in Excel, hopefully a lot of you are doing your own taxes. And there are a lot of great online programs to do your own taxes. And obviously 25 years ago when I first started filing my taxes, and even our taxes jointly when we married, I didn't know how to do taxes. I would go and sit in, you know, an accountant's office, and they would go through and do everything. But many years ago, I kind of sat, and I remember sitting in the office, and the guy was typing everything in the computer, and I'm looking over his shoulder, I'm like, all he's doing is basically typing in numbers off my W-2 and some deductions into a program. And I can do that. I can read a W-2. I know what I paid in interest, you know, in my mortgage interest every year. I know what I paid for my car tag every year. I know what my student loan interest deduction is. So if you don't do your taxes, if you're going to an H&R Block, I would encourage you next year, just try to do it yourself. It is, with the technology now, and I've been doing my own taxes for years, every year it gets easier and easier and easier. The programs now are so automated, they basically just ask you a bunch of questions, read off your W-2, make sure you're keeping track of your charitable deductions, if you're paying tithes, which I hope you are, you know, giving to Goodwill, which we do, giving to your alma mater, FAMU, you know, which we do. You know, if you're doing those types of things, all those are tax deductions. Giving to your PTA. Keep track of your tax deduction, and it's really easy. And it's funny, you can even deduct, let's say you pay $100 to use Tax Act or TurboTax. That's a deduction. The money you spend on your taxes is a deduction. So definitely do your own taxes. when you fill out, I think it's called your W-4, your deduction form at your employer, and I know there's this ongoing debate, is it better to have less taken out of your check, or is it better to get a big tax return? Obviously, you want to have as little taken out of your check as possible, because if you're getting a big tax return, the argument is you're letting Uncle Sam borrow your money interest-free, and you don't want to do that. So certainly we don't want to go overboard with the, hey, I'm getting a $15,000 tax return. If you're getting a massive tax return, you might want to make sure you're not getting too much money taken out of your check. But also, again, if you are smart about your deductions, if you're keeping track of everything, I think most of us should get a tax return. And I think, again, most of us should do our own taxes. The exceptions, obviously, I know it's a little bit harder for those of us that are entrepreneurs or own small businesses or have maybe more complex family business relationships. But again, I think for 90% of us, doing our taxes is pretty simple. All right, guys, so that was the second in this financial literacy series of Tea Time. Again, we don't have all the answers. You know, these are things that we've done over the years. Put your suggestions in the comments. And I tried to cover a bunch of other topics, but there might be some stuff I hadn't thought of. You guys brought up the taxes. I hadn't thought about that. So maybe we'll have a third one. I don't know. Let me know, guys, in the comments if there's something else you want us to talk about, and we will be happy to do it. But once again, thanks for tuning in and supporting The Unfrumpy Mom.